All right. Well, this is the Lucas episode, Lean. What did you think?
I thought the whole episode was really insightful. I thought that he had a lot of insight for the work ethic of the daily life. And you said lean,
Yeah,
that's his.
yeah, Lean. So he's going to be going over Lean concepts and how that applies to the AEC community, the AEC industry. So he's a Lean expert. He does that in his field, and he came in for the day just to go over how we can improve our company, 29E6. And then after we did that, we went through and discussed how that would apply to others in the AEC community, AEC industry. So, was there anything that hit home with you during the discussion?
Yeah, there was a quote that I ended up writing down, and he said something like, if you behave the exact same way, your result will be the same. I just really like how that hit.
Yeah. So, if you're doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results, I believe Albert Einstein said that was the definition of insanity. So, don't be insane. Listen to this episode and learn.
Again and again.
And get something out of it. So my name is Andy Richardson, and I've been doing this 26 years in the structural engineering field. This is my producer, Madeline. Let's jump to the intro.
Welcome to Enhance, an AEC podcast, where we learn the why behind AEC professionals so that you can learn your why.
Okay, well, we're live now. So, hey, Lucas, thanks for joining us on the podcast. So, Enhance Podcast. And it's been a busy day.
Yeah.
With coming in and doing some consulting with us at 2096. But wanted to get you started with our first question. Sometimes we have a curveball. But let's say that you were tasked with designing an inefficient system. How would you design it and how would you fix it?
How would I design an inefficient system? I think the easiest way to do that would be to do it in a vacuum. So I wouldn't let anybody who's in the system participate in it, and I would just decide what all the steps are going to be.
Okay.
And I would put lots of handoffs in there, and I would put lots of gray areas in there, and maybe even some places to rework things, do things over again.
Do it over again.
Yeah. Lots of inspection. Like every step should be checked.
Okay.
But not explain how to check those steps.
Interesting. Okay. So, and then how would you unravel that?
The easy way to unravel that would be to fix the first thing I said. So I won't engage the people that do it. I'll do it in a vacuum. The way to unravel it would be to engage the people who do it.
Yeah.
So find the people who have the tasks in the process, bring them in to find out why it's painful for them.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, it sounds like that's a big key to being lean, right? Which is a big part of what you do. So that's the next thing I want to do is just give a little bit of background into who you are, why you're on the Enhance AEC podcast, and why should people in the AEC industry even care? So maybe just to give us a little background into who you are, and then how you got into lean, and then we could just get into some more questions. But can you just start us out with your background?
Yeah, so originally leaving high school, going into college, I tinkered with electronics. I thought that's where I wanted to go. So be an electrical engineer. That was the first thing. My first double E class made me say, that's not what I'm going to go do. No way. And I got introduced to civil engineering, and I started working at a civil engineering firm. And more specifically, they were letting me go out with the survey crews. And I just loved it. Like, I'm outside, I can still use my math, I can still be creative, I can still do CAD and other things. And I became a professionally licensed land surveyor. And pretty early in my career, I'll get to the lean part, but I think I had a propensity for a lot of this stuff, like the improvement. I was always looking for better ways to do it. I was always leveraging metrics well. I always understood process. It was just kind of innate in me since I'm a 9-year-old paperboy. So I climbed the ladder pretty quickly at a multidisciplined engineering firm. In 2008, when the development market was crashing, I was under a lot of pressure to bring new work in and started doing more energy sector work. And then, not tell all that parts of that story, but I ended up working directly in the energy sector for a natural gas company. And my first day there, they had lean continuous improvement consultants coming in, teaching us lean and process improvement and continuous improvement, and instantly clicked for me. and started doing a lot of it with my team. I had a team at the time of 12 people. We were all energized. We loved doing it. It was a lot of fun. And then it just progressed to where, even though I said I worked really hard to get that LS stamp, I don't use it.
Yeah.
So 11 years, I haven't surveyed anything. I haven't done any engineering. I now do strictly process improvement and continuous improvement.
Okay.
That's my life now.
Do you miss the surveying and the engineering?
There are moments I do miss some of that, especially a spring day where it's not too hot and it's not too cold and it's sunny. I miss kind of being out there. I also, in the company I spent most of my career at, we did some premier projects. We did some like United Nations building or some of the tunnels in Manhattan, Sawa Island in the Middle East, and some of these premier projects that it's kind of cool when you're at home and you turn the TV on and something you worked on is on there. So we had some of that. We were kind of that level firm. So I really miss some of that. The Meadowlands Arena where the Jets and the Giants play was a project I worked on my entire career. That started before I got there, and it was going after I left there. So you see football games on TV and you see stuff you worked on. It's kind of cool. So I do miss that. And I miss the process challenges that the engineering part brought. It's a little different than the process challenges I have now, or opportunities, I should say.
Right.
But how we could leverage efficient process in the engineering space to create, extra profit and all these other things. I miss that. I think I was pretty energized by being in a competitive space where getting things done better and faster than everybody else was key.
Yeah. Okay. And you're still in the construction industry, I guess, or what role are you in now?
Well, so I'm just strictly dedicated to process improvement. We actually have an engineering and construction division at the natural gas company I work at. And for a little period of time, I only did process improvement and continuous improvement for the engineering and construction group. But now I work for the whole entity. So all the support functions like accounting and legal, and then the bulk of our business is actually operating our assets. And so probably my biggest interactions, the bulk of my interactions now are on actually operating gas processing and gas transmission, working with those teams. But engineering and construction still calls me. I still get to go work with them. And it's different because we're kind of like the customer at the end of the day in the environment I used to be in. So the engineering firm I started at, the company I work at now would be hiring them. So I'm kind of on the other side of the fence, so to speak, which is a different dynamic, but exciting. It provides a different type of opportunity for me.
Right. Okay. And how did that transition happen, or in terms of going from AEC, surveyor, civil engineering to a lean guy?
Yeah. That's kind of a somewhat tough question to answer, because there isn't like this like flip, like I went from that to this. When I got to the industry side of the fence and started learning the formal terminology and the formal language of it, what I realized is I've always been doing it. Like when I was 9 years old delivering newspapers, I was doing it. I didn't call it what Toyota calls it, but I did it. Like I did the thing, it helped me. I got paid by the paper, not the hour. So get it done. There's a wiffle ball game at 9 o'clock. You better get done your paper out. So how do I develop processes? So when I first formally got the certifications and the training on the industry side, I looked back on my career and I said, well, the things that were going well for me in consulting engineering are these things that I'm now learning what they're called. So that was kind of the transition. But going from industry, going from the supplier side to the industry side, was really a matter of I was traveling a lot. My kids were at an age where I didn't want to travel a lot, and they just kept giving me an offer that kept getting better. And it was you can stay home now, and you can do this, and maybe your wife doesn't have to work anymore. And so all of those components said I'm going to go to the industry side, and I'm really glad I did, because day one we had lean training. My first day there. Okay. I walked in. They said go back there all day for training. Like, oh, okay.
So you get to learn lean and get paid for it, right?
Day one. And what's interesting is some of the people who had been there for a couple of years at the time were not buying in, because they already were set in how they were doing it. And to me, I thought this was the only way to do it because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And I think part of that made it a little easier for me to adapt as well.
Yeah. Now, let's go ahead and jump into this because I think we want to make sure, we're an AEC podcast, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Architects, engineers, contractors, and they may be thinking, this is for manufacturing.
Yeah.
Like lean, that sounds like Toyota. That sounds like something I don't need to hear. Let me turn this off. So why should they keep listening? I mean, why should they care about lean, I guess?
Well, that's a common thing I get. Like even on the industry side of our business, when I start working with new groups, they say, well, I don't make widgets. I'm not making cars. I'm not Toyota. That is the common, this isn't for me. But there is case studies, there's examples out there of all of these other industries that said, wait a minute, if it works there, it's gonna work here.
Yeah. And
so you can see lots of case studies on where it's been adopted, who's using it. There is a Lean Construction Institute now that you can pay a lot of money and be part of. A lot of the engineering firms who work with those construction contractors are starting to go, oh, maybe we should be doing that as well. So it is newer to the space. There isn't, a ton of engineering firms out there that are going to come up and say, yeah, we do that, or we do the formal part of it. Most of them will say we do pieces of it. So I'll say it is you're on the front end of the curve if you're embracing this philosophy right now. But it's had a majorly positive impact in healthcare, some other retail spaces that use it. There's lots of examples out there. Lots of sports programs use it with great success. So there's all these non-manufacturing applications that are popping up.
Right.
And I think the next one of the next ones you're going to hear a lot about is like design and engineering. Because like I said, when I was learning it, I was able to go back and say, that's why, we did that. We didn't call it that, but we did that. We were really successful because we did those things. And wow, we could have been more successful had we known this next piece or this next part.
Right.
So retrospective, I was like, wow, I wish I would have known this 20 years ago.
Yeah. And I started reading your book. I'm about halfway through.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
But you had a section called lean. I think it's something like lean before I knew what lean was.
Correct.
So
yeah.
Maybe give what's an example or two of that you did from either engineering or even personal life that you can think of.
Well, I'll get the personal one I already kind of alluded to was the newspaper route, right? I got paid by the paper, not the hour. So there's a lean tool called spaghetti diagram, and so what you do is you just draw movement. You just literally just draw how people move, and every place there's an intersection is potential waste. Because I've now touched that place twice, right? And so it's thinking about tracking motion and how do I do this and do that. And, on a newspaper route, like if I got to walk through this spot 4 times, that I've probably wasted some time. So I literally had maps drawn where I was doing that. And I would draw a new path and I would time it. Mm-hmm. And I would come back and say that path isn't faster. Go back to the old one. And I would try a new one. Oh, this is the fastest path. Try a new one. And honestly, the fastest that I ever got it to was like 80% faster than when I first started. And it wasn't so much, a little bit of it was the path, but more of it was the time. Like if I go at 5 a.m., I don't waste, I can cross the street differently because there's no traffic, right? Yeah. So things like that. But then in the engineering space, some of the key tenets and principles are around, putting the right metrics in front of people, visually managing stuff. We did a lot of that. I mean, some of it people would consider very radical on some of the transparency we had on financials and how we were sharing that with the teams. But we really figured out how to share that. And again, I hadn't learned lean yet. It was just like, hey, that worked. Like people are doing better. So let's do more of that. And so we started doing it. So we were sharing that in a way that was inspiring people to do things differently. And then really understanding process. When we were starting to get into a price crunch with our field survey groups, it was okay, we need to be able to get this work done 20% faster or we don't make any money. So we started looking at things like technology. That was kind of the easy win, but with technology comes cost. So that's a tough one. We got to the point where teams that were doing projects that were similar would sit down and map out where they park their truck, what the first guy does when they get to the site, what the second guy does when they get to the site. And those are all basic lean principles that we were using and didn't even really know what they were called. Like we didn't know that that's a thing. We didn't know that's how other people work. And it made us incredibly efficient where we could get so much work done really, really fast.
Right. Okay. So in terms of somebody who okay, you've piqued my interest, let's say.
Yeah.
Now, let's back up a bit though and just say, okay, what is exactly lean? I mean, how would you define it?
Yeah, so I define it, it's a business mentality of reducing or eliminating waste through respecting people and continuously improving. And I use all of those words very intentionally.
Okay.
Like I didn't just throw that one out there. This is something that I've thought about. I talked to a lot of people about it. I've made little revisions over the years, but all of those pieces are components of it.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what the waste is, and I'm trying to reduce and eliminate it. But I'm doing it while I respect people. And then I'm continuously doing it because I'm constantly looking for that next thing. I'm taking small bites. I'm not boiling the ocean.
What are some of the core pillars or principles of lean?
Yeah, so when I look at it, and I'm not probably the only one that has this view, but you have a lot of tools. So there are some defined tools that are out there. A 5S is a system where you're visualizing and organizing things. There's different structured problem-solving models. There's process diagrams. There's all these tools, and a lot of them work really well in certain situations. But the one thing that I've learned over the years, and it's a guarantee, is if your culture is not conducive to using that tool, the tool will not work, no matter how great the tool is. So the phrase I hear a lot of people say is, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture also eats your tools for breakfast. Like if the culture is not conducive. So I think when you talk about lean, it has to start with culture. And so pillars of lean, it's respect everyone. Like that's one you'll hear from anybody who's studied this, anybody who's interested in it, anybody who learns about it. Respect everyone. And then words like empowerment. Psychological safety is kind of the buzz term, but that's more that whole fear. Like don't have people afraid to raise their hand and say we can be better. You have to create that environment where people want to raise their hand and be better. Another key piece then that kind of ties culture and tools together would be flow. Like you want things to flow, not just your business processes, the tasks you complete to make money, but I want my annual performance reviews to flow. I want my weekly updates to flow. I want my career development to flow. You want all those things to flow with people to a common goal.
Okay, so that's
some of the key things.
Some of the keys. I mean, and we didn't really get in. So you spent some time with my team today, and we didn't get into the culture as much. We did hit on it, but it wasn't an emphasis today. It's definitely in your book, but a couple of things we did talk about today were that I took away for our team and some of the things we want to do. Number one, because I have we did a fun little exercise at the very end today where we wrote down a to-do and we rolled it up in a ball and threw it over the wall. And then we traded it. So, but the point of that was that we would hold each other accountable. So that was a fun exercise. But one of my to-dos was to get a KBI.
Yeah.
So that was a big takeaway today. And the other thing that we went over that was a big takeaway was our process. And so I see these things, all this stuff intertwines, which is interesting. I mean, it's not like a clear path. It feels like a spaghetti, a bowl of spaghetti. And I have a lot to unravel, but thinking back to your newspaper route and like the KBI, KPI, because what I'm getting at is metrics and measurement is a big part of it. Lean, right? So when you were, I guess, 15 or?
My paper route was 9.
You were 9 years old. So when you were 9 years old, you were looking at that stopwatch.
Had to stop. Yep. Well, it was a clock in the garage. Yeah, because that's where I would write it down.
You were like, okay, that was a metric though, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
metrics my whole life. Wiffle ball metrics. I probably still have them in a book somewhere in a closet because I don't throw anything away.
Right.
Metrics are a very key part of it.
So that would be a KPI though, right?
Yes.
We talked about today KPIs, KBIs, and also we went over the process. But can you define what a KPI and a KBI is? Yeah,
so the PI is the performance indicator. That's your result. That's what I got at the end. So the result, my paper route, that's the result. The BI is the behavior. So it's interesting, like you kind of said, we didn't spend a ton of time on culture and we didn't intentionally call it culture. But the definition of culture is the sum of your behaviors.
Right.
We spent all day talking about behaviors,
Okay.
whether you guys noticed it or not.
That's fair.
We
That's
were
fair.
documenting behaviors for all kinds of things. We documented behaviors for good leadership. We documented behaviors for good teamwork. We documented behaviors for good communication. And then when we started talking about KBIs, obviously we were talking about behaviors that produce the right results. In the process, the steps you take is how you behave.
Yeah. Okay.
And so if you have a process or a way you behave that's not getting you the result you want, the KPI, you have to think about what behaviors can I change to change my result. Because if you behave exactly the same, your result is exactly the same. And so
Right.
you think about what are those key ways I behave that I could be measuring. And that does stumble a lot of people, because sometimes that's like, how do I measure that behavior? And there's no one right answer. So the guidelines I give is keep it simple, keep it intuitive, keep it available where people can see it. And I guess we'll see how good I taught today. You remember the most important thing about a KBI? The fourth thing?
The most important thing.
If the metric or visual management doesn't do this, you shouldn't have it.
If it doesn't, I guess, institute change.
Kinda.
Okay.
So
The
drive
behavior that you're looking
Yes,
for.
there you go.
You know, it should institute or implement the change you're looking for.
Right. Inspire the right behavior. And the desired behavior. So when I put this number up, I expect people to behave this way. Then they should be behaving that way. And if they're not, you might have the wrong metric.
Yeah. And so I'm going to give a shout out to one of my, I guess, people on LinkedIn that I've connected with, Renz Hayes, and he's with another podcast, Design Development Podcast, and also H&O Structural Engineering. But he was talking about the KPI in the engineering world of utilization.
Yeah.
And so I bring this in because it's, again, an AEC podcast. So the A and E of it, so a lot of architectural firms, a lot of engineering firms, they're focused in on this utilization number.
Yeah.
And I am in that. I mean, that's something that we have targeted as well, and we have as a target number as well. And so I'm looking at that and thinking, is this the best number? Because is this the best KPI? Because it's going to be driving behaviors maybe that aren't what we want. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're spot on. And I mean, I'll speak to that. I mean, normally I would say, well, ask the people who you expect to behave that way and see what happens. But this is a number I'm very familiar with, because for years that was a number I evaluated. And that number, coupled with earned value, like how much work is getting done, could inspire the right behavior. So you're talking about, do you want progress or do you want activity? Well, I really want both. Like I want all of my activity to count towards the progress of the project. So utilization number in itself probably isn't going to work as a KPI because the inspired behavior could be to just make sure I put hours on my timesheet. It doesn't really inspire you to move the project forward. So if I'm able to tie that to progress on the project or project on the work or a profit margin or other numbers, then it really could help get you where you need to be.
Okay. And we spent a lot of time discussing that. There was a number of ways to do that. I probably won't get into that too much right now, but there are other ways to do it. We discussed, our secret to success at 2096 is plans out, and how can we tie that? You mentioned the earned value ratio. Obviously, being more open about the financial was discussed. So those were a couple numbers that we hit on. Was there anything you wanted to elaborate on that?
I think what I'll elaborate there is, and I'll turn because we have it on a whiteboard beside us, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff up there, right? And it might all work, or none of it might work.
Yeah.
And you don't know until you try it. So get it out there, try it, and then kind of as we talked about today, if I'm putting this information in front of people because I'm intending for it to help them make our business more successful, then make sure it's doing that. And if you're not sure, you have to ask them.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you saw this earned value number that's tied to our plans out, that correlates actually profit and plans out, and it was below, it was red. What did it make you feel? What did it make you do? Oh, it made me want to just put out a job resume and go work somewhere else. Okay, well, maybe we're showing you the wrong metric then. Maybe we need to do something a little different.
Right.
And so that's the kind of, again, most important part. What behavior does it drive? And sometimes you have to ask to find out. A lot of times you'll find out in your next KPI cycle, right? Like next time that KPI number comes in, you might find out you missed it. So we're probably driving the wrong behavior. But it'd be nice to find that out before you miss it.
Right. Right.
You know, hey, we got this new thing. It's intended to do this. Is it doing that? Not doing that. Okay, what can we be doing to inspire that behavior then? What's the data you need to behave this way?
Right. Okay. So let's switch gears a little bit into, we talked about A and E, but the C, the construction, is this something that could be helping the contractors in the construction side?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you think about, so I guess I didn't mention this in key tenets of lean, but I probably should have, is the whole system thinking piece and understanding what are all the pieces of the system. And when I think about a project, it doesn't matter what kind of project it is. It could be, you know, an engineering architecture project like you're working, or a massive energy project like we're working. A lot of times construction is the bulk of the spend if you think about the whole system, right?
Yeah.
So you think about, I've bought a piece of ground, I'm putting up a building, I've hired a structural engineer, I've hired a civil engineer, I've done all this. When you look at total spend, construction's gonna be a huge piece of it, right?
Yeah.
So don't you want the biggest piece of your overall project to be operating very efficiently and as a successful part of the system?
Absolutely.
And that's what Lean's trying to do, right?
Yeah.
And like I kind of mentioned earlier, there's a Lean Construction Institute now. There's a lot of consultants coming into the construction space because it is really helping them. They are ripe with opportunity. I know, like in the energy sector, I do work on projects where we bring our construction contractor in. Like they're not in-house people, but when we're working on improvements, we need them there because there's things we're doing that are setting them up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
So on the construction side, there's just a ton of opportunity there to think about flow and about process and about metrics. I can give you dozens of examples on safety.
Right.
Like where good visual management or good metrics drive the right behavior.
Okay. Yeah. Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah.
Maybe one.
So I'm not saying don't ever train people, but we like to, when there's a safety incident, retrain people, right? Like, oh, we're going to train you how to do that again. We're going to train you how to do that again. 4 times in, we're training you how to do that again, right? And I sit there and say, well, it didn't work the first time, right? And so, you know, like an example I can give is something like lifting, like construction. You're lifting heavy equipment. There's a specific way to do it. Everybody's trained in it. Everybody's certified in it. Some people get complacent. Some people are in a hurry. Some people don't have the right straps, so they just do it different, and they get an accident. And then you say, okay, we're going to retrain that person. And then when the next person gets in the machine, they say, hey, remember, you got to do your lifting correctly. Yeah, I got you, right? Well, if you put a photograph of the excavator that lifted something up wrong and it went through the cab of the truck on the controls of that vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
that person will remember to lift properly.
Right.
It's that little bit of visual management that says, do it wrong and this is what happens.
Right.
That's a pretty powerful one that you'll see. That's an example that's been given a couple different places. Just how do I communicate it differently to get them to understand it's important? I'm going to show you the picture of what happens when you do it wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it right here where you're working.
That probably will change their behavior.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, and we were talking about a book, Steve Chandler, he's not in the lean industry, but he's in the, I guess, business and leadership industry, but
Yeah.
he talks about this idea of want to versus how to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a behavioral aspect of things, meaning you have to be motivated in order to do something,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, so once people are motivated to do something, they'll figure out the how to,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to get the want to, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I see a picture of a hole in somebody's arm because they didn't lift it right or whatever, or, you know, if you happen to know somebody who went through a situation like that, you're going to have a want to.
Sure.
I don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
but just a fraction of the total picture in terms
Right.
of construction that could be impacted by this. So
Yeah.
it seems like lean could really impact the AEC industry as a whole. And we're definitely looking into it for our company because, and working through it currently for our company because I see the value in it. And we went through a lot of examples today
Right.
of, I mean, we spent a good amount of time just going through like examples of lean from all the way back. Toyota was one of the very early ones,
Right.
if not the first.
The first, yeah.
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 They kind of put.
Well, a lot of people say Henry Ford was.
Okay.
Like he really thought about production and things like that. I'm like a Lincoln nerd. I read a lot of Lincoln books. I would say Abraham Lincoln was.
Yeah.
I mean, that man thought about process. That man thought about empowering people. Voice of the customer. He used to open the doors of the White House and say, "Come tell me what you need."
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
those are all lean things.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's kind of hard to say it, but in most circles, somebody will say it's Toyota.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
they did it at a scale. You know.
And there was a few things that I thought was interesting. So number one, just the story of Toyota is interesting, and the 1970s, we had a gas crisis. You know, Jimmy Carter was president, and, and
today's
you know, he obviously just recently died, so at 100 years old.
right.
But the thing is, we had a gas crisis, and these companies couldn't get their gas mileage down, but Toyota could.
Mhm.
So what was it about? I mean, I gave you a curveball, so here's kind of a softball.
Yeah.
What was it about Toyota that was different than the U.S. companies that would allow them to get the gas prices down?
Yeah. I'm gonna pick one word because I think this is the most important word: culture.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Their business culture. Everybody there was aligned to go get this thing, and they were empowered to go get this thing. And they had defined processes, and they had metrics that were the right metrics to say, what are our big problems?
Right.
Where are we wasting money? We have to do more with less. How are we going to do that? And their culture was conducive to people saying, hey, if we move this bolt over here, it works better, as opposed to who's the clown who designed the bolt over there and just pushing it down the line.
Yeah.
And they don't do that stuff.
Right. Okay.
Because
And
of their culture.
I mean, you think about, is that a cultural thing? I mean, Japan versus U.S. because, and in particular also like the AEC industry.
Yeah.
You think about, you know, contractors. I mean,
Yeah.
that the idea of humility doesn't go hand in hand with the construction industry.
No, you're correct.
Am I right about that?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So how does one? I mean, I don't know. That may be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But what do you? How do you bring that in to the construction industry? That sort of humility aspect.
So you know, and if I had the absolute answer for this, I'd be using it because I encounter this all day, like every day in my day job. I encounter this. Right. It is that, you know, I'm the oil field guy. I got the boots. I've been doing it 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You know, and that's tough, and that's okay. There's value in that. Like there is a lot of value in that mentality, but there's also a lot of potential concerns with that mentality. Like you're not innovating, you're not evolving in certain things. And so where I see it start to work is when it's small doses. So just come in and help them figure out how to improve something that might not even matter. There's a company out there called Fast Cap, and they talk about when he starts in the bathroom. Like, listen, we're just going to clean the bathroom. I'm going to show you all how lean can work in a bathroom. And that's how he starts.
Wow.
And so it's that start really, really small. Show them that it's helping them. You know, I think a lot of people, especially in construction industry, it's like, oh yeah, I'll get the boss richer, big deal. You know, why do I got to work harder to make him richer? Or, you know, I've always done it this way and everybody's left me alone. So just, you know, status quo type stuff. And again, you know, I get why people can be that way and why the industry can be that way, but you know, show them a little bit different and show them how it impacts them. Like adopting this doesn't help the company. It helps you first. Oh, and by the way, a better you helps the company at the end of the day. And macro culture is there. Like, yes, Japanese companies can adopt it like this. European companies adopt it very quickly. American companies really, really struggle to adopt it.
Right.
I've been fortunate to develop a pretty good network of other lean people from other companies who have worldwide footprint, companies that operate in South America and Europe. And they tell me, like, yeah, when I go to Ireland to do this, it's so easy. Like the people are just on board. Like they want it, you know. But then I go to New Jersey and it's like, get out, you know. So it is an issue, which I've been doing a lot of work in the last couple of years in the Pacific Northwest, which I think there's something there. There's a macro culture there that seems to be conducive to this.
Yeah.
A lot of the examples that people will give on what good looks like for lean or continuous improvement are coming from the Pacific Northwest. And some of the people I'm working with up there, I'm like, wow, this is going really easy. So I do think there are some components there that need to break down. And the construction industry is one of them that I think is going to have, it's going to be harder. And I think that's why it has to be slower and it has to be incremental.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds like we just hit the tip of the iceberg on that topic.
Yeah.
But I want to get into just a couple more questions. But one of them is, really what this podcast is all about, enhance the world around you. What drives you in terms of working in this, not necessarily always in the AEC industry, although that's a big part of what you do, but just in lean in general, like what drives you to do that and help people with that aspect of things?
Yeah, and I guess the short answer is the number one reason that I pivoted to this full time, zero to do with financial. I actually took a pretty big demotion at my company. They were nice to keep my salary, but because my job title demoted, my bonus changed dramatically.
Okay.
And I knew that, but I did it because I knew it helped people. Like I knew the project manager who struggled every day when he came in, went home and, made it miserable for his wife and his kids to be around him because of how bad his day at work was.
Right.
And I started seeing some of that change, and I started having people call me and say, yeah, hey, I know we saved a bunch of money for the company, but this is what it's like at home now, and I love it.
Yeah.
Or this is what I'm doing with my kids' archery team, or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah. You gave an example earlier about, I guess,
soccer games. I go to soccer games now. I manage the same amount of work. We get it done faster. We get it done cheaper. I never went to soccer games because I didn't have time. Now I go.
Yeah.
That's a huge metric. But I like the word enhance, right? To me, improvement equals enhance. Something that's enhanced is improved. So it's very easy for me to say, oh yeah, well, if we're enhancing this and it's an enhancement podcast, well, it's the same thing. Improvement is enhancement.
Yeah.
But also, I don't remember which episode, maybe you say this in every episode, but it's the why, enhance the lives around us.
Right.
And that's really what I'm leveraging it for, is to enhance people's lives.
Yeah.
Not the bottom line of a company. I mean, that's great. It's a nice side effect. That's not what gets me going. Like when I hear a 8th grade teacher talk to me about a kid's behavior changing in class because he's using lean principles at basketball. Like that's not just changing his life. That's changing lives of people around him, his parents. I mean, It's going everywhere. So it's enhancing the people around me. It's improving the people around me.
Yeah.
I do so much of it for myself, like improving me, but it's really in the vein of like, I want to do it and I actually call it, I'm being a light. So I'm being something that somebody can look at. So when I do these things, I want to do them in a way that people see them and go, I want to do some of that too, right?
Yeah. When
I really first started trying to get my wife to do some of this stuff, that's what I did. I tried to get her to do it. And that's the wrong way to do it. Okay. Like I saw her get frustrated with things. I saw her struggle with things. I'm like, oh, lean fixes that. Here, do this. Not received well. So I changed my approach and I started kind of doing it in a way where I was just doing it for the things I wanted to do it for. And then I turn around one day and I'm like, oh, what do you got going on over there? And she's doing it. I have like this tool I use for my task management.
Okay.
The lean tool. It's color coded. It does all this stuff. I get an incredible amount of stuff done with this. For years I said, you should do that. Go do that. I'll print you one. Nope. And then I just started doing it all the time where she saw it. And now the weeks that she doesn't print them, she tells me about it. She's like, I can't believe I didn't do that this week. So that's enhancing lives around me.
Yeah. And that's interesting too, because you're using this, I mean, you don't just use it at work, you use it at home and with your parenting, with your, as far as your marriage.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere you can't use lean?
I haven't found a place yet.
Okay.
I think somewhere at the end of my book, I actually talk about that. Like if you have a place where this doesn't help, call me because I don't buy it.
Yeah.
I haven't found a place yet,
Yeah.
I've worked at our church on it, and I did get, some pushback there. People are like, this has no place at church. This is, okay. But then you get other people like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. This is this is so great. I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah.
Because part of lean is seeing value, right? So if I'm in a church environment, isn't the value of church spreading the word of God for other people?
Yeah. How can you?
Okay, so aren't there tools here that help us do that better?
Yeah.
There sure are. Yeah, there sure are.
That's awesome. And I mean, God is a God of organization. So
yeah,
I mean, He gave us these tools ultimately. We just have to learn how to use them.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of us having the humility to use it.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's, Christ-like in itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that concept. So, let's say that somebody is really, I mean, if they've listened this long, they're probably interested in the topic, or maybe they just are listening along. But how do I get going on this? I mean, you've got a book. There's other books. There was one guy you mentioned that I think he gives like some like small tweaks you can do. I forgot the name of him.
Paul Akers.
Paul Akers.
That's Fast Cap. Yeah.
Oh, that was the Fast Cap guy.
Yeah, he's the CEO of Fast Cap.
Okay.
I don't know. They might have 1 million videos now. It's hard to keep track. They
Okay.
do them every day.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Short, picks up the phone, just says, "Here, watch this." One of the videos I talk about with him, like if you went home and explained to somebody in your house what your day so I described the video. Like if you went home and said, "This was my day at work," everybody's like, "Here, let me get you a drink." So, we were told we need to do something 8 times as fast as is being done today. So my boss and this other guy watched me do it over and over again and kept timing me. Like, whew, that's awful. Like, here, let me get you that, right? But you watched the video. It was the best experience of that woman's, it was great. She loved it because he wasn't over there like faster, faster, faster. He would just report the data and she would go, "What if I did this? Well, let's try it. What if I did this? Well, let's try it. Well, what if we did this? Let's try it." So when you explain it, it's like, that's terrible. Like, I don't want that to be my day. But then you watch it and you're like, that's awesome. Like my boss didn't say you got to get that done 8 times faster. He came over there and gave me everything I needed to get it 8 times faster.
Yeah.
Like, and this excitement in their voice when they watched that timer and they went, "Oh, we got it."
Yeah.
And they ended up getting it 12 times faster or whatever. Like,
That's
they ended up far exceeding the expectation.
Well, part of it is realizing you could, with some effort, with some of these principles, the sky's the limit.
It is.
I mean, which is amazing. I mean, one of the examples you talked about today was actually Toyota, but more of a modern example, which is some of these companies, it takes like 2 weeks to change the die.
Maybe like different cars, frame machines and stuff.
To go from like a Ford F-150 to a Ford Bronco, or, whatever. So, but Toyota does it in like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
that's
probably
crazy.
lower now, but yeah.
That's just an example of
the
sky's the limit. You can go from 2 weeks to 1 hour. So what could be possible in A, architecture, in E, engineering, and construction? What could be possible? So I think it just gets my mind going. I'm excited about it, what we're going to do. So thanks for just sharing everything you've shared today. So you've given us one place, Paul Akers, with his YouTube. Is there any other else they should check out?
I mean, I have a YouTube that has some more like home applicable stuff. It's not all business. So that's Lean Unleashed.
Okay.
So I do a lot of short ones. I have some longer ones on there. A lot of my older stuff is longer because I wanted to just give everybody this. Like, I couldn't wait to get it out, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the feedback I got was, I don't need to hear you talk about this for an hour. Like, you're burying me, right?
Right.
So I was doing like 3-4 minute little nuggets, just little tricks, little tips you can do. So that's certainly out there for somebody to kind of pick through. There's a whole series of those. There's some longer things on there. But I mean, just research it. And if you want to look at it, don't look at the people who say they're doing it good. Look at the people that we know are doing it good.
Right.
Right. So there's a company called Barry Waymiller. Bob Chapman is the CEO there. They know they're doing it good. They've got all the data. They'll show you how good it is. Toyota is still very good at it. Pixar Films is good at it. I think you heard me earlier mention the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team, which I don't know. I knew nothing about rugby till I started learning Lean.
Yeah.
I went, wait, why are they better at sports than everybody ever?
Yeah.
And they are, substantially. And they use it, and they talk about it pretty plainly that they use it. for what they
that's
do.
crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
the percentage of winning was what, 80?
70s. It's a high 70s.
Yeah. So, and then Green Bay Packers and the Cowboys are
Like
what?
50s. Yeah.
50s. So,
Yeah.
and that's the greatest of all time, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, what could be possible?
Yeah.
I think is what I'm gathering from this.
Sure.
So, anything else you want to share with the audience today?
I think kind of word of caution. It's very easy to get overwhelmed, right? Like I saw faces today where they're like, "Oh, it's so much," and I was very bad at this when I first started helping others with it. I would come in with everything, and people would just be like, "Whew, like turn the bulldozer off. You just ran us over, buddy." Like,
Yeah.
So I would say, pick the small things, pick those little things, pick something fun.
Okay.
Like when you learn how to apply this and fix something fun that you enjoy doing, then you do the next one, then you do the next one. And you'll be amazed at how quickly that can grow and how fast you can get from, I just learned how to make my eggs 3 seconds faster to, I'm working on a $40 million project that involves 100 people at the company that's going to make their life better. And, our financials are going to get 20% better.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I think that's a great starting point. Just start small and then apply it to bigger things.
Mm-hmm. It's
Awesome.
not one size fits all. Absolutely not. There's no one right way to do it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Lucas.
Thank you, Andy.
Take
I
care.
really appreciate getting to talk about it.
For
So,
sure.
Yeah. Excited to see where 29E6 goes with it.
Yeah.
Really excited.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have a lot of things we can do with it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, take care.
All right. Thanks,
for being on
Andy.
the show.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to today's episode of Enhance. And please leave a like, subscribe, or follow, and we'll see you next time.